What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today I am making an all-pro team for the 2024 NFL Draft Class. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube at this point. We're going to be featuring an offensive first and second team, same thing with the defense. So, again, feel free to stick around. We have a lot of mock drafts coming in. A lot of new updates as well, and today we have 100 new all 22 videos all 22 tapes that just dropped. So thank you, Monsieur Caddy, for being able to finally supply us with some goodies. So it's gonna be fun to see how this list changes over time. Starting out with the offense, and this is gonna be our offensive first team. For those of y'all who have been loyal, beautiful subs over summer, you guys can tell this is actually a derivation of my my team breakdowns. So I decided to make depth charts for the teams, so you can feel free to check those out. I have record predictions as well. I decided to repurpose them. Given that there are 5 wide receivers, or 5 receivers essentially, that are on the field at the same time, I thought it would be all right to be able to toss in a second boundary wide receiver under left wide receiver here, because again, it's possible. Technically, it's possible for a lot of things. But you know what? I wanted to feature Keon Coleman here, who is an absolute stud. So looking at this, we'll go with the quarterback and the weapons. We'll go to offensive line. That's just how we do it here. Quarterback Caleb Williams. I don't think that's a big surprise to anybody. Just don't. I think it's Caleb Williams is one of the best, if not the best, quarterback prospect that has come out of college in at least my remembering lifetime of especially starting the draft. But, you know, from the time that I've been able to understand the draft, this guy is pretty much up there with the best of the best. He's a bad man, respected by everybody in college and everybody in the NFL as well. You might say 86.5. Why isn't he 95? Why isn't he 100? If y'all don't know, my grading scale is extremely harsh. I mean, look at Marvin Harrison's grade. That's arguably the best receiver we've seen come out of college. So I like to have 10 being the best I've ever seen. So anybody who scores above an 80, that is spectacular. 80 plus is blue chip grade. So you also get to see pretty much this is my number one at every single position. So again, it's kind of like a rankings video as well. But, you know, when it comes down to it, 86.5 is pretty much acing everything. Everything. Very rare. The only one who's actually legitimately gotten 90 plus has been Kyle Hamilton and Sauce Gardner. Those are the two guys who I believed in that much. And before that, Sauce wasn't a 90 plus. It was after his 40-yard dash time that I ended up boosting it. So, you know, there definitely is some guys who have reached a little bit higher than Caleb on a grading scale, but nothing comes close to, especially in the quarterback position. You'll see the difference between QB1 and QB2. I have taken off Joe Milton for those of y'all who are scared shitless about QB2 being Joe Milton. I'm waiting for all 22 tape because there have been some things I really want to dig into before I put him on an all-pro team. So looking at the running back Trey Benson, I already did a running back video on it, so feel free to check that out as well. Quarterback video will need to be updated in time. So, you know, that's going to be a video. This is going to be a little bit more in-depth than that. But Trey Benson, I did go into depth about him in another video. The guy's just spectacular. His vision's incredible. I know I got some FSU fans who want to disagree with that, but just his ability to navigate the hole properly is just, it's so good. And after watching actually quite a bit of Florida State tape, I realized that some parts of the offensive line aren't holding up as well as I thought they would. So maybe if you're thinking about it, that could be a reason why his vision doesn't look as good, because he doesn't trust that side of the offensive line of scrimmage, and probably for a good reason. But Trey Benson's spectacular. I think he's going to be a starting running back in the NFL for probably 10 years. Then we got the wide receivers here, Marvin Harrison Jr., Keon Coleman. You're going to say, oh my God, how does he have a 75 and all these other guys have higher scores? My grading scale is holistically. So I look at the whole wide receiver in his specific role as an ex-boundary receiver. Him and Marvin Harrison are the only two that I truly believe are ex-build wide receivers. He's spectacular. But I think that he still has a little bit of an issue when it comes to dealing with some press. You do see him, he's getting a lot better at it. I increased his grade significantly. So got to keep that in mind. But when it comes to his release package, still extremely raw. He hasn't learned the nuances of the game, and that's okay. He's proven to be strong in the areas we knew him to be strong in. And he's improved his after the catch ability. He's improved his route running. He's improved his ability to handle that, the press coverage. He's improved slightly his release package. Not all there yet. But the thing is, he still is able to perform on a college level extremely well. I'm talking about as a whole wide receiver in the NFL, still need to work on those nuances of the game, and he's doing it. He's improving every single week. My number 6 receiver coming into the year before he ever took a snap at Florida State, and obviously he is my number 4 receiver right now. Again, number 2 X receiver, and I think he is spectacular. It just depends on the role he goes to, because I love Johnny Wilson. I've never seen a man who has that physical frame. I actually got to, my high school was rivals with Calabasas, so got to see him quite a few times on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And, it was pretty entertaining to see a 6'7", 230-pound beast on the other side. But regardless, Johnny moves unlike anything I've ever seen at that size. Like, genuinely a freak at that position. Does he drop the ball? Unfortunately. Don't understand that because he makes the most spectacular catches ever. And to be fair, a lot of people love Jordan Travis. He has the 2 best contested catch receivers in college who have bailed him out plenty of times. So just got to put that out there. Even though Jordan Travis is a good quarterback, he definitely feels more collegey. These guys are built to be NFL star receivers. Emeka Egbuka, incredible. Again, 75, people are like, oh, you don't like him? 75 is hard as fuck to get. Like, these are incredible grades. I don't grade wide receivers as, like, green means first round. So all of these guys are easily worth a first round pick. Big fan of all of them. Have to just say that because people are going to look at the numbers and say, how do you value this over here and versus this? Like Johnny Wilson over Keon Coleman. Again, it's going to be that release package. It's going to be not the contested catch ability. Both of them actually have a 5 out of 5 in that category. But like both of them are extremely athletic. But Johnny Wilson's just so much better of a route runner. He has a better release package. And those are areas that Keon Coleman's still improving in, but has not reached that level yet. Now, Johnny Wilson's hands are significantly lower than Keon Coleman's. So there's areas where where Johnny Wilson takes a step up. Some areas he takes a step down where Keon Coleman's good. They complement each other very well. It's why Florida State's doing a great job. Emeka Egbuka is phenomenal. He's one of my favorite players in the class, and it sucks to have him, not even being highlighted as like the best receiver because he is awesome. I'm a huge fan of this receiving core in this draft. And the thing is, I was getting to that point where I was studying the class. I was like, damn, I'm not excited about this class at all. And like the 6 out of the next 7 guys I studied were in my top 10. And I was like, okay, my faith's restored. So started out with Emeka Egbuka. So he saved the draft class, so to speak, in my eyes. Awesome player. Just such a huge fan. You got Olu Fashanu here, who has ascended to be my left tackle number 1. He has just rare movement ability. Super special, just one of those super fun talents. Needs to still work on his anchor. Re-anchors pretty damn well, but I want him to not immediately get pushed back. I want him to be a little bit more forceful and just hold the pocket a little bit better. I think his pocket awareness needs to get a little bit better as well. I saw him artificially collapsing the pocket just because he didn't fully understand where he was on the field, but that's something that comes with time. So he's going to be great in that category. Troy Fautanu, left tackle at Washington, but I have him projected as a left guard due to length issues. Phenomenal, feisty-ass player. And actually, we're going to be bringing on Brendan Jackson. Actually, I already did a video with him, but that's going to be at the end of one of our mock drafts to be able to go over and talk about some of these guys like Fautanu and Fuaga here. But that's beside the point. Still, phenomenal player, extremely aggressive, just needs to work in the nuances of being a guard again because he switched to left tackle and still plays like a left tackle. Just the length issue does make me concerned. It is what it is. Now we got Bo Limmer, former right guard, now at center for Arkansas. Spectacular. Another player who has great feistiness, unbelievable athlete, keeps his legs too far together. I think that's my one issue with him is like for guys like Leonard Taylor and Jazon Newton, who we'll be talking about soon, he's going to be shed pretty easily. So just got to call that out as it is. But honestly, just a wonderful, fun player to watch. Somebody who I think could be a late first round pick, and I'd be perfectly fine with it. Then you got Christian Haynes, who is one of my guys in this draft. Just unbelievable athlete at his size. Makes Bo Limmer look slower, and Bo Limmer is a top tier athlete at center/guard. Christian Haynes looks pretty much like a tight end out there, but he has a lot of power. He was able to handle guys like Chris Jenkins, Monty Smith, who I have a lot of respect for. So when you're able to perform against top tier talent and you have great athleticism, it's a good start. He only allowed 3 pressures, I think, last year as well. This year, he already let up, I think, 2 or something. I'm forgetting it off the top of my head. But like 4 out of 5 of those pressures last time I checked were against one guy, and that's David Van. So one of my favorite players who I did not mention in this video, but just want to give him a quick shout out. And then apparently it's Talise Fuaga. So because Brennan pronounced it much different than I do, I say Taliesin, but I'm going to believe it's Talise Fuaga. Honestly sounds even better than what I say. He's been my guy forever. I fell in love with him watching him versus Tuli Tuipulotu, who I am a huge fan of. He actually was someone who I became far higher on later in the draft process too. But Talise Fuaga just has been absolutely dominant. Had a 95.0 grade or 95.6 grade in pass blocking this past week versus Brennan Jackson, who I just talked about. So we are going to be talking about him. Like, it's a really good nugget. So you guys have to stay tuned for that because I'm trying to find a time to attach it to a video, and I want it to be on a mock draft just so, or maybe a mock the mocks just so he has the proper publicity because he deserves it. But we talked about Talise and, Brennan Jackson going up against him. RJ Stone went up against him. There are a lot of really high-end edge rushers that have faced Talise Fuaga, and they've been absolutely ineffective. And that's just because this guy knows so well how to use his body, and he's so good on the move. He's just unreal, an unreal blocker. Like, definitely one of those guys I'm starting to plant my flag further and further into the soil as being my right tackle number 1 and potentially moving him up to offensive tackle number 1. But Olu has been absolutely phenomenal, lights out. So can't really say that there's much of a difference between OT1 and OT2 for me because I love both these guys tremendously. Brock Bowers, okay, I forgot to mention him. I do that in every single one of the videos, by the way. I always forget about talking about Brock Bowers, the tight end. Spectacular tight end. Weirdly, his best trait, in my opinion, is his blocking. He just rare blocking ability at his size. And he's obviously great as a receiver after the catch. You're not going to have very many issues with him. He's going to be a stud. So highest graded tight end I believe I've ever had as well. Last year, my highest was Sam Laporta. Looking like that's working out pretty fine. Next, we got the second team because I was going to do a first team and have my notable backups be like second teamers. But it's like, you know what? Screw it. Y'all deserve a longer video than probably like a 6-minute video, even though it's already been 12 minutes. But we're looking at it. Wide receiver, quarterback Bo Nix. You could argue Drake May. I do think that Drake May has, that's why I put him on here. Him, Michael Penix, and Bo Nix have all been performing phenomenally this year, so good for them. I think Drake May has not improved in the areas that I truly wanted him to improve in, and he's continued solidifying the areas where he's great at, and that's fine. If you have a system that could mitigate those issues, great. Again, I grade players on a holistic scale. I look at them overall as a prospect, not how they fit into a certain position. If I were a Vikings YouTuber, for example, I would grade players based on how they fit the Vikings, right? And that's what my post-draft analysis. So I give draft grades on those grade days, which you can check out all of mine from this past year. So, there is certainly an element to grading that you can't have this early on. You have to do it post-draft, or you have to be team specific, which I'm not. So just take that with a pinch of salt. Obviously, if I'm the Vikings, I'm taking Bo Nix, or I'm taking Drake May over Bo Nix because I think Drake May has a perfect situation there. But holistically, Bo Nix has been better because Drake May has some areas where he's not improving versus Bo Nix is just overall a quite solid quarterback. Regardless, that I want to spend a little bit of a moment talking about that. Running back Marshawn Lloyd, he's not my RB2, but I think he might be the best running back in the class. And it's mainly down to his fumbling issues, and he's 10% away from breaking tackles at a rate that's translatable to the NFL for him to be probably the third best running back in the league. I genuinely believe this guy, if he continues to improve his game, which he already has exponentially, will end up being a top 5 running back in the NFL. Just calling it out right now. I think this guy's phenomenal. And I know that some players that I don't like, we'll talk about some in this video who have actually ascended quite a bit for me. But sometimes I don't 100% fully work out on those guys. My hit rate on players I don't like, not necessarily the highest, but the players I love, extremely high hit rate. So, I do believe when I'm genuinely passionate about a player, which honestly matters more than anything, I'm so happy to be proven wrong by players I'm not a big fan of versus, players I fall in love with. It's a pretty high hit rate. And I think Marshawn Lloyd's going to be able to prove that. At least he'll become a top 10 running back in the NFL. Just spectacular talent. Spectacular. Now, we'll talk about the wide receivers, Troy Franklin, Brew McCoy, Jermaine Burton, and Jacob Cowing. So, Troy Franklin's been an absolute baller all year. He's just continued being as good as he can be at his size. Just, fluid athlete, good route runner, good hands. And, honestly, he's been a pretty good contested catch guy too. So overall, spectacular. Jermaine Burton, the most underrated wide receiver in all of college. This guy's just consistently dominant. Again, if you're 70 plus, you're a damn good player. You belong in the NFL. Like 70 plus means you have a place in the NFL. Guarantee it. Most likely a starter. If you're 70, probably 73 plus, you're going to be a starter. Definitely 75 plus. I believe all my 75s will be starters in the NFL. So, Jermaine Burton's a fringe starter for me at that point. Brew McCoy, same thing. I love Brew McCoy. I know a lot of people. I got to bring up Malik Neighbors and Xavier Worthy. I think both of them are very, very good, especially in their specific roles. I think Malik Neighbors in a role where he's supposed to be pretty much the screen and go type of guy and maybe the guy to take a deep crosser. As a crosser runner himself, so basically somebody who's going to be, not running super sharp routes, this guy's going to be spectacular. Like he's going to be a top 10 receiver in that specific category. I love Malik Neighbors in that aspect. Again, we're talking about holistically. This guy goes to a team that needs that role. Absolutely, I'm fully siding with him. Like he goes, I think if he ends up going and he's actually staying in the South here, going to Carolina, God tier. He's going to pretty much be what Terrace Marshall should have been. So again, not shitting on Malik Neighbors here. Xavier Worthy is a great deep threat as well. Not crapping on any of them. Holistically, as wide receivers, they have certain areas that they're weak in. So I try to balance that out as much as possible. And given the three different body types here between Burton, Franklin, McCoy, I feel like I've done a pretty good job at that. But Brew McCoy is a spectacular player. He's just limited athletically. I don't think anybody who's a Tennessee fan will shame Brew McCoy. He has great frame. He has great hands. And he's just overall a damn good player. So big fan of him too. Jacob Cowing, I was starting to get worried at the start of the year when he was putting up about 40 yards a game. He's been getting up to 80 plus and getting touchdowns too. So glad for him. He's showing out. Good for him. Offensive line, Joe Alt, Maurice Mims, bookend tackles, both of them superstars. Some people think they're tackle ones. And for a while, that was the case for me too. Before I found Fuaga, before Olu took a big step up. Then you got Cooper Beebe, Zach Zinter. Killer dynamic duo there at the interior offensive line. Not a big fan of Cedric Van Pran. I know a lot of people are, but I actually just restudied him, and the amount of whiffs this guy has, you take the defender out of the play, he looks beautiful. Perfect, use of length, perfect job sitting on his ankles. He does a great job. But the moment you add a defender into the calculation, he ends up getting pushed back because he ends up not adjusting properly. He has the right form, and then he just holds his arms out too long. He gets shed. The shedding issue is the biggest one. I love offensive linemen that can use their length properly, but if you're like this, what do you think of what happens with Chop Robinson, for example, I guess this is defensive interior. Leonard Taylor, you're fully extended like this, and then he yanks you forward. You don't have any more, you can be like this, and then if he yanks you forward, now you can adjust. When you're fully extended and don't refire your hands, that's my big issue with him. But still, we don't have that many good centers in the class, if I'm going to be blunt. Still a quality option. There is certainly some big negatives there. But there you go. Jaheim Bell, again, forgot freaking Jaheim Bell. He's been phenomenal. Jaleel Billingsley is right behind him too. Couldn't mention him in the notable backups, but he probably should have been. Other guy, Kingsley Tuamataia, he's playing left tackle, so kind of struggled there, but he was a dominant right tackle. And then again, I already talked about the QBs. Let's go into the defense. So, forgot to talk about the awards here. I feel like they're pretty self-explanatory. Then we got the accolades as well. Again, pretty self-explanatory. I don't need to pretty much read you off everything that I have on the screen. So as long as y'all can read, I think you'll be okay. So we're looking at the defensive first team here. You got Leonard Taylor, Chris Jenkins, Johnny Newton manning the middle. All of them have identical grades. Yes, they're all phenomenal players. They all play actually different styles of position too. Chris Jenkins now up to 320. Leonard Taylor just about 300. Same thing with Jerzon, Johnny Newton. So actually, they fit really well with this category. I wanted to give credit to the bigger boys on the interior. So I want to give some credit to those guys who can play nose tackle. Sometimes they can play both D tackle and nose, but I'm willing to bend the rules a little bit for it. But then, somebody who will be playing more of a 3-tech versus, 4-3 D end. So I wanted to give some credit there. Outside linebackers, again, D end kind of labels it as, potentially a 3 tech, potentially a 5 tech. And then you got your outside linebackers here. I'm actually following what the guidelines are from PFF. So this is based on their max amount of reps per position. And PFF labels Dallas Turner right outside linebacker. Jared Verse, left outside linebacker, for the reps they play the most. Now, there are Leos and Rios, which are pretty much wide 9 positions. And I'll talk about that with my second team, but none of these guys really need to pertain to that. Leonard Taylor, the best player probably I've seen at the D tackle spot, Bart from Jalen Carter when he's going 100%. And I just want to see a little bit more consistency, but this dude is an absolute wrecking ball. Like when he's on the field and he's going 100%, I don't know how many people can stop him. He's up there with Jalen Carter. Chris Jenkins just added some weight, so I'm still waiting on a little bit more translatable tape before I get excited again. But this dude was phenomenal. He used his weight really well at 290 as well, so proud of him for doing that. And then you got Johnny Jerzon Newton, who is the best block shedder I've probably ever seen. Still want to see a little bit more push on the pocket, but overall, just again, this defensive interior class right here, the top of it, spectacular. And there's some really good guys down the line too. But yeah, Dallas Turner, you see he's the highest grade defender. Primarily, that also deals with versatility when it comes to outside linebackers and edge rushers. I do try to prioritize guys who can play multiple positions. Dallas Turner, even though he is lighter at 242, has a really good usage of speed to power. And that's something you can kick potentially to a 5 tech and just say, hey, I need you to bowl the hell out of this guy. Surprisingly, at 242, he plays like he's 262. I love that. He has freaky bend. He reminds me a lot of Will Anderson. So it's good to see that. And Will Anderson was graded higher, for those of y'all who were wondering. But Dallas Turner has amazing coverage ability as well. One of the best players in that regard. So overall, just a phenomenal player. He also plays the run really well, very smart. Sure, there's some reps that he sucks at here and there, but every single player probably of all time have had reps that just didn't go the way they wanted to. He bounces back really well. Big fan of that. Jared Verse is the highest graded pass rusher that I have. So he's the best pass rusher. For those of y'all who are like, oh my God, Jared Verse is so much better than Dallas Turner. Listen. My grading scale does not just go over pass rushing. It goes on run defense. And again, that versatility, you can see that there might be that slight little difference that boosts Dallas Turner above Jared Verse. As a pass rusher, there's not much better than Jared Verse. He's spectacular. I haven't really seen, maybe besides Aiden Hutchinson, a guy who's more dominant as a pure pass rusher. So good for Jared Verse. Been on board with him for a hot minute now. Looking at those linebackers, you got Tommy Eichenberg and Jeremiah Trotter. Still grading them out, so I'm not going to BS you guys with a BS grade. That's just the type of person I am. I'm not going to lie to y'all about it. And then with the lack of all 22, especially they didn't even have 2022 tape for Williams and Kinchins, but from the normal tape that I've seen, still spectacular. I still want to see the nuances of their game though. And with 100 videos coming out, we might have a chance, but at least we know that the new all 22 plug they have some tape. I'm very excited for that. But Jeremiah Trotter is super duper smart. I've been watching plenty of Clemson tape, so he obviously pops off quite a bit. And if I'm going to be honest, I'll take it on the chin. I should have had him graded by now. Cooper DeJean, I have him 72 graded as a 72 as an outside corner. That's why there's an asterisk there. I have him probably going to be graded closer to a 79 or an 80 as a nickelback / safety. I think he's incredible, especially as a safety. I think he'd be up there in the 80s. So I just want to give him a quick little shout out there. Kool-Aid McKinstry is spectacular. Just reminds me so much of Surtain Sauce, like genuinely top tier man coverage corner. And very excited to see what he's going to do in the NFL. Kalen King has some slip-ups here and there, but his ability to bounce back is incredible. He has skin-tight coverage as well. Very excited to see what he does at the next level. Now, we're going to go to the second team and end it off here. You got, why don't you go? We'll go the normal way. Looking at the defensive line, you got Tavondre Sweat nosing it up. I know that there are some other guys who I have technically higher graded at D tackle and nose tackle, but again, I have faith in some of these guys a little bit more than others. And at 355, Tavondre fit the nose tackle build so much better than other people too. And I'm a big fan of Tavondre Sweat, so it's my list. I get to be excited about certain players. You got Tyleik Williams there at D tackle. This guy's been absolutely phenomenal. One of those few guys where I agreed to the traits idea. Like I could totally see it, and he's starting to flourish. Great for him. Tyler Barron plays everywhere on the D line. That's why I put a little asterisk there. He plays Leo and Rio quite a bit, which is that wide 9 position I talked about earlier. Wide 9, for example, for y'all who don't know, it's pretty much like 3, 5, 7, 9, like really far outside. You should see my hand. So basically you take a sharp angle on a tackle. A lot of these guys actually do play Rio and Leo quite a bit. Chop Robinson, for example, Xavier Thomas, they also play Rio and Leo. But Tyler Barron also takes reps on the defensive tackle side as a 3-tech and a 5. I don't get that, but hey, you know what? He's been absolutely balling out. He had 8 pressures, I believe, this last week. He's been doing great. I'm happy for Tyler Barron. He's spectacular. He's been one of my guys for a hot minute now, and he's going to continue to be. So happy for him. Next, we have Xavier Thomas. I love Xavier Thomas. I rewatched him today. So yes, these edge rushers are updated as of today. Xavier Thomas, phenomenal. I mean, people just don't talk about him enough. Super freaky athlete. Where his one issue, honestly, is that he stands up way too tall on certain reps. But you'll see him get his pad level down and just absolutely annihilate, and I mean annihilate, an offensive tackle. It's awesome. It really is awesome to see. And he is ferocious. He's getting held 24/7. Literally watched this past week. He went off. Spectacular player. Didn't get the statistics that really would have represented how damn good he was because he was getting blocked, or he was getting held that whole time. But then Chop Robinson. I'll say it. I was not ready to crown Chop Robinson as a top tier prospect at the start of the year. I thought he was way too inconsistent. I think he still has those inconsistencies for sure, but it's gotten significantly better. And the thing is, his top tier reps make him look like a top 5 prospect. I'm going to put it out there. But again, whether he's going to become much more like the top tier self versus the normal self is really dependent on where he goes and potentially who he is in the offseason, right? He ended up being a lot more explosive than when I watched him last year. He does have one of the best first steps, so I'll admit that. Again, I owe you honesty. Whether I'm right or wrong, time will tell. But what I do owe y'all is honesty, and Chop Robinson's phenomenal. There were some of those reps where I said, holy shit. I'm not even joking. It's literally on my scouting report, which if you guys want me to start posting stuff like that, we could talk about it, but it is what it is. Just unbelievable reps. I do think Chop needs to be far more consistent, but when he gets to those high-level reps, it reminds me a lot of TJ Watt. It does. And I'm scared shitless because this guy is, if he goes to the right situation, I don't know who can stop him if he becomes more consistent, like the guy who did a Myles Garrett juke around a guard. He did it, and I was jaw-dropped. I raised him up from, I think, like a 63 up to a 71.75. That's a ridiculous amount. Still think he needs to work on his polish for sure, but he has shown so much progression, and I have so much respect for players who work on their craft and become more consistent. I saw the flashes, and I said, I want to wait to get excited. I'm excited. So even though he is second team, I totally believe in the fact that he could totally be the best player in the class on the defense. Phenomenal upside here with Chop Robinson. You heard it here. You heard it from me, the number one hater. I'm not. I'm just honest with y'all. Some players, I'm not a guy who likes to project. I like to see where they are and where they end up. That also is where I start finding my guys. This is where, you progressed a lot. I bank and I bet on players who bet on themselves and work their ass off and improve. That's just me. Nickelback, Chris Abrams drain. I know that I'm kind of just jumping from the linebackers to the corners. He's been spectacular. I have a grade on him, but it's from last year, so waiting on the DB tape. Denzel Burke, 75.25 grade, phenomenal. He's a starting quality corner. But I love Dwight McLaughlin a little bit better, I'm going to be honest, even though his grade's lower, just because he's a worse athlete. Just talk about skin-tight coverage. I think Dwight McLaughlin could be a top 10 corner in the NFL, and it scares the hell out of me, but he just needs to go to the right situation, similar to Christian Gonzalez. Linebackers, Barrett Carter, Tyron Hopper. Tyron Hopper's a freaking beast as a blitzer. Best blitzing linebacker I've ever seen. But Barrett Carter, again, still waiting to see a little bit more. Not excited about him the way I am Jeremiah Trotter, and I'm very excited to be proven wrong, or maybe just right about Jeremiah Trotter, but maybe wrong about Barrett Carter, and get excited about him. Safety-wise, Jaden Hicks, beast. 44.4% missed tackle rate this past week. Not great, but he's been like on a meteoric rise. Great for him. And then Kalen Bullock is so special. Like, it really was a coin toss between him and Cameron Kitchens for my safety one. Both of them have been spectacular. The guys who did not make the list, who I would love to shout out, Rukaroro, he is higher graded than pretty much the majority of the defensive linemen, but he's been not so productive this year the way I wanted him to be. JT Tuimalau was going to be the right outside linebacker, and I said, let's study Chop. I owe Chop, very minimum, some extra hope and some extra faith. And again, I love admitting I'm wrong about a player that I'm waiting on. So again, love that. JT's been doing a great job too. Still think JT needs far more polish than even Chop does, and Chop needs some polish, but he's getting there. Good for JT. Then you got Jason Marshall Jr. here, spectacular corner out of Florida. He's big, he's physical, technically graded higher than, well, actually he's graded about the same as Dwight McLaughlin. So, again, this is actually pretty accurate to my rankings. You got Kamari Lassiter, who, unbelievable athlete. We just need to see him continue to progress. And then I have to shout this guy out, Princely. I haven't updated his scouting report yet, but my God, I watched Florida play, and this guy plays with a new level of speed and ferocity, and that was two of the big categories that dropped him. So I'm very excited to be able to see what he does there. This video ended up being a lot longer than I expected, but I really wanted to be able to give you guys an insight to the players I really love. It's a way that I can also have a really cool idea here, because I don't know if anybody else does this, but I asked you guys if you wanted to see it, and I thought it was just a really fun idea, so I went along with it. So thank you so much for watching. See you on the far side. Peace.